All right, just texted Claire.
Oh, I thought that I'm sorry. I
Hello,
texted Claire.
everybody. It is Tuesday, July 15th. Thank you for joining us. It is the Grassroots Resistance Collective.
You're watching Grassroots Resistance Collective. Texas grown, people powered, and unapologetically bold. We expose corruption, amplify real candidates, and give voters the truth the system tries to bury. No spin, no sellouts, just resistance. Let's get to work.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I just want to start out real quick by setting the tone of the Grassroots Resistance Collective and what this is about. So here at the Grassroots Resistance Collective, we're not going to wait for any permission to tell the truth anymore. We're going to dig deep. We're going to name names, and we're going to speak for the people who are getting steamrolled by people in power. This isn't corporate media, so we're not going to treat it like it. We're here to expose the truth. We're here to expose these backroom deals and all kinds of hypocrisy going on right now in our government. If you want to follow us on our socials, we are at GR Collective TX everywhere from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I am here with my co-hosts, Ms. Chastity.
Hi.
Ms. Jan.
Hey.
And my name is Tovar. And today we're going to be joined with our special guest, Ms. Shaun Salvaje. She's a cannabis activist, and she's here to explain a few things for us here for this special session. So as everybody knows, we are going to be going through a special session starting next week. So we're going to talk to Shaun about some things revolving around the cannabis deal, specifically SB3, and anything else that might follow that. Yeah. Chelsea, you got anything?
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into this segment specifically, I want to make a small disclaimer. Everything that you're about to hear is based on factual, verifiable events and public statements. The commentary and opinions that are expressed are mine and mine alone, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Grassroots Resistance Collective or its affiliates. I just wanted to let y'all know because I'm a little crass like that. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this
legal advice. No advice. No, we're not giving you business, legal, or financial advice.
Exactly.
Or medical.
So this is the Texas and National Headlines segment that we go through every week. First of all, Shaun, is your last name Salvaje or Salvaje?
It's Salvaje.
Salvaje. Got it.
Salvaje.
So I was just saying it right.
You were saying it right the whole time.
On it, trying to say it right the whole time. But the white chick did it right.
Oh, good job. Yeah, I try to help people out. I just go Salvaje, you know, and that's how you remember it.
Perfect. Okay, so first thing this week, we are going to talk about the Kerrville floods and the fraud of our leadership. So I'm going to start with Governor Greg Abbott, Texas' own destroyer cosplayer, who has been flooding his Twitter account with thank you messages to every surrounding state for helping Kerrville, except for one, you know, the one that actually showed up, Mexico. Okay, not a single acknowledgement. I guess saying gracias does not pull well with your donors, does it, Greg? So back to that. Meanwhile, he's been patting himself on the back, just like he saved the entire city. But here's what he will not tweet. Texas has had millions in designated flood prevention funds sitting since 2019. Kerrville was flagged years ago in state flood zone studies, but instead of releasing those funds, the state buried them under bureaucratic mountain of red tape. However, that federal money that they did get was refused. It got worse because Kerrville actually did receive millions of dollars in federal funds during the Biden administration to prevent disasters just like this. But the local powers that be turned it down. Why? Because it came from Biden. They didn't want strings attached. Here is a newsflash. Any check that gets cashed at the U.S. Treasury, no matter whose name is sitting in the White House, that's your money. Your tax dollars, but thanks to the political pride, Kerrville said no to that amount of money that was allotted to them. Meanwhile, our favorite disappearing senator, Ted Cruz, once again proved that his travel schedule is the very best early warning system for Texas disasters. If he leaves the state, something's about to go wrong. This time, while Kerrville flooded, Ted was out sightseeing at the Parthenon. Not sure if he was studying democracy or running from accountability, but don't worry, he did make it back in time to get handsy with Netanyahu and, of course, announced that he is raising money for Israel. Not Kerrville, not Texans, but for a foreign government, because apparently Israel is his homeland and Texas is just his campaign address. Then Trump flies to Texas 1 week after the flood, by the way, and Greg Abbott gave him a public reach around for responding quickly. 3 days later, Trump gets off of the plane, immediately started lying because that's what he does best. And he says he, quote, saw thugs throwing bricks at ICE vehicles from the air from his plane that does not fly or does not drive on roads. And he followed that with his greatest hits during the specific, what was it? His press conference, sorry. Nobody's ever seen anything like this, even though the same flood happened in Kerrville in 1987. When a reporter asked about the delayed emergency warnings in that same conference, he called them evil and a bad person for asking the question. Meanwhile, he used that press conference to babble about his border wall, his big beautiful bill, and whatever other nonsense that he usually pulls from his truth-free bingo card. And then we have Dan Patrick, my least favorite house husband of the GOP, who pops up this week to brag that he and Speaker Burrows have formed a new disaster preparedness committee for the special session. That translation to me means Dan is about to hold Kerrville's recovery funding hostage so that he can shove his donors' agenda through the legislature, just like he did with SB 3, school vouchers, and every other authoritarian scam that was wrapped in a cowboy hat. Just a reminder, all of these events that have been discussed are real and documented. The analysis and opinions are mine personally and not those of anybody on this page or that participates with Grassroots Collective. Thank you.
Thanks, Chastity. All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Grassroots Resistance Collective. So this is your movement. We really want to encourage everybody to join in. If you're here watching us in our chat, go ahead and ask us some questions. We'll try to answer what we can. But in the meantime, let's get to it, Jen.
Okay, so I actually want to go back to what Chastity just went over. So back to Ted Cruz specifically. I read headlines that when he got the phone call that this was happening and he was supposed to get right on a plane to come here, he and Heidi actually took 2 more tours in whatever city they were in before. Like, they delayed their flight further to be able to take more tours and see more sites before they came and surveyed the damage.
Okay,
yes.
I didn't know that. So
we're paying for shit.
So they extended their trip?
Extended. Yes,
After
he could have gotten on multiple flights. Yes.
Okay, that's fucked up. I thought he was just like if it was already the planned flight, I was like, okay, that's fine. But if he extended it knowing that shit, god damn it, classic Ted.
I saw when I was researching, found a video of somebody that was actually in line for the same tour that he was going on with him and Heidi, and she had said something to him like, Texas is flooding, what are you doing here? It was when they were actually in line at Parthenon, and the girl said, hey, what are you doing? Texas is flooding. What are you guys doing? And then she did a live, and she's like, this is what Ted Cruz is doing, him and Heidi. And they said Heidi was really ugly, rolled her eyes, gasped at her, and they just went on with their stuff.
Wait, hold on. This is my shocked face. See it? This is it.
Yeah.
What?
I'm not saying he's the Texas weather vane. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't understand if I was just his PR advisor, I would just be like, maybe let's just be extra on our toes right now, especially because he's had so many viral clips from, of all people, Tucker Carlson. So many viral clips in the recent months.
Doing God's work.
Yeah, and he's just going viral for the wrong reasons, and it's making me, the PR person in me is wondering, are you meant to be the patsy? Are you meant to be the bumbling moron who's distracting us everywhere else? Because he, when he gets on these podcasts and he tries to get sassy, he sounds ignorant. He loses the argument often. And then it's just, why would you be 10 toes down delaying your trip. If I heard Texas got any kind of rain, and I'm sure, like the people on the ground, at first we were told, don't worry, it won't be much of anything. But by that morning, he had to have had notice from the state or some other official capacity. They tell you about this stuff. They ask you, you want to know about what's happening to your constituents directly. You're going to have people who are on your team who are like, holy shit, this is unfolding in real time. I don't know why they wouldn't have, aside from like it's a bad episode of Veep or House of Cards, although
right,
really built House of Cards, like that's why it reminds me more of Veep. Is like imagining the conversation between Pat and Heidi, like, well, how flooded is it? Do we have time to go to Tuscany, or should we pop over? I'm just like, oh, on a political level, this probably like one, the callousness, not acceptable. But then if you just want to be completely cold, even on a strategic level, such a bad move. It's such a bad play. It's so bad it makes you wonder if it's not on purpose sometimes, because
yes,
you need that.
I mean, he does work on behalf of Israel.
Yeah, and he had a bad week in that, specifically with that. You come back, you don't show your face in Texas, you go straight to the White House to meet Netanyahu, and then when you do come back out, you're asking for money for Israel. You're not trying to help the people of Texas.
Not a word.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got other ambitions as far as his political future and the work he'll be doing. But representing Texas I still cannot understand how he keeps getting elected, because I don't know a damn person in Texas who has voted or liked Ted Cruz on either side.
Yeah.
So Shaun, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
So I am the founder of the Puebla Group, and that's really the core focus of my work here in Texas. The Puebla Group it's a not-for-profit. We are not an established 501c3 yet, but we are a not-for-profit agency that does pro bono lobbying for the people with the state legislature. And our focus so far has been cannabis and psychedelics, but we're going to start expanding soon to other issues. And my work in Texas in the cannabis space has been largely in an advisory capacity. I used to do business management and operations consulting, and then some marketing and PR. And I got into that because I was way back when I have more decades on me than people realize, which is my fun party trick. But way back, I did close to 13 years for the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense. And I worked as a combat photojournalist for a while and documentary photographer. And then eventually I did cross over to the dark side, or so they say. I tried to keep it really honest and stay in my integrity. But I did move over to PR and strategic communication once I got to a higher level of operational work with the Air Force and the Department of Defense. So eventually I was doing national communication strategy out of New York. But it's not exactly what you think, because I know that can sound a lot like PsyOps and intelligence operations like that. It's not that at all. When we are talking about communication strategy, what we're really trying to do, and there are going to be different camps, because there are definitely some PR people who are spin doctors. But for me, it was really about getting the public the education that they needed to know about how the Department of Defense was spending their tax dollars, what we were doing in missions overseas, and how that actually would impact them. And then we were trying to find ways to make it very palatable for the American public, because that's some really dense information. Most people don't want to read the war reports, or at least they didn't. These days, I don't work for Uncle Sam anymore. I can't imagine how many inquiries they're getting, though. So I think it'd be a different story these days. But what my job was to really facilitate education and communication between public and their government. And that is kind of what I've done with the Puebla Group. Is now we're not doing it for the government exclusively. We're doing it with the people and working with the government. So I will, like for the cannabis issue, let's say, I will talk to industry stakeholders, experts, consultants, everybody. I'll talk to the advocates, patients, moms. I'll talk to the prohibitionists even, because my second background and the thing that I do here in Texas more frequently, because I just have ADD, I got to do a lot of things. But I got, after being in cannabis business operations for a while, and then also the government, I just saw a lot of conflict, and I decided to become a mediator, because I saw there was a need in our industry to help people kind of solve problems, bring parties that can't see eye to eye together to have an actual conversation, because we have to make progress and make laws and move things forward or settle cases. So the work that I'm doing more recently in Texas with the Ledge is more of that lobbying work, more of that advisory work, and then putting together information for legislators so that way they can come to the table with a full understanding of the issue. And that includes Republicans and Democrats. So I reach out to Nathan Johnson's office as much as I'll reach out to Charles Perry himself, although he doesn't like to answer back often.
Godspeed, ladies. Godspeed.
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, I'll have lunch with you, Senator Perry. Come on down.
I don't know if I can do it. Some of these people.
Yeah, I can make peace with just about anybody. We got to bring them over. I'll sit there and have an edible. I'll pop an edible every 10 minutes just for him to
see. Okay. So to be fair, full disclosure, I'm about 5 years into my journey with using hemp products. I'm a recovering addict. So I forget sometimes that this is like a bonding thing, and maybe you can like reel people over from the other side. You can just like smoke fatty together and get over your shit, and everything is good.
Just normalizing it. I mean, so one of our, and I don't want to take us too far off track, but a fun story from the regular session this past March. We were all there really late. I think Tovar, you remember the late night when we were all there? It was around 2 a.m. And I was watching my time to testify, and I was popping edibles. I told them that much. They were
like, hold on, calm down, wait. Let's get you on the record first.
So we were having a real conversation. This was with the House State Affairs Committee. So they actually listened. It was 2 a.m. And I told them, I'm going to feel great tomorrow morning. That's because at least a couple of times during the 6 or 7 hours I've been here, I've popped a 10 milligram edible of THCV and THC together. And in the edible, it's an edible from American Weed Co., which is also, they do American Hemp Co. They're from Texas. They operate in multiple states because Texas wouldn't pass sound regulation or laws, and they're refugees. They're like original Texans. Their family had some of the original land deeds, if you can believe that, for the state of the Republic of Texas. Yeah. So, and they're a farming, agriculture-based family. Like their roots go way back. So they make great products. And so I had a lot of confidence sharing, like, this is the gummy. And I think doing that helps a lot because I said it's 10 milligrams. I've had about 5 of them since we've been here. And I know my tolerance level is very high, you guys. I'm a veteran. It's too high. But I have a lot of fat molecules and that can absorb it. It's a little different for me. But I think sharing that is helpful. Like if I was to sit down with Senator Perry, I would want to make it comfortable for him, but I would also normalize consumption. I'd probably have a bottle of something that we could pour and titrate. And if he wants to have a sip, he can have a sip. But if he doesn't, that's okay. But he'll watch me drink that whole thing and be completely normal and completely intelligible. And then we'll talk about safe dosing. And I do think doing things like that, some people will and let's talk about this for special session. It's not a stunt. I think that's the difference when I do it versus when sometimes people go in there and they want to light a joint and flick it.
Right.
That's a publicity stunt, and that you can do that. You'll get a reaction. It may not get you a result though, because you're kind of leaning into aggressive tactics, and I'm a mediator. That's just not going to be what I do.
Yeah.
But having a conversation where I have an edible, they see that I've had it. We talk about it and I tell them it's full of B12 and vitamin C and I'm going to feel like $1 million tomorrow, even though it's 2 a.m. and I'm waking up at 7 a.m. with you. And I don't think you're going to feel the same, sir. Are you? That's because you are hyped up on caffeine and who knows what else, like just black coffee for you today. I understand why you're freaky. You know, we got to have some real conversations about the nutraceutical element of this. I think too often legislators are understanding it from a 2000s, 1990s vice market perspective. And there's definitely space for that because we do have vice market. But vice market to me is it will be such a small percentage of the total industry by 2030. We just have to normalize.
Yeah, for sure. What as far as this special session goes, obviously the floods are going to be probably the one that everyone's paying close attention to. And I don't think that Dan Patrick is just going to go kind of like how he did for the regular session and just go hard for SB3. What do you think about that? How do you think Dan Patrick's attitude is going to go going into this?
Well, they're lawyers, you know. So they wrote SB3. I mean, Charles Perry's not a lawyer, but I don't believe.
He's a physician or something like that.
Is it? Oliverson is.
Sorry.
Oliverson is a pain management physician. Right. So there's my caveat there. Because I would say that there would be a conflict of interest if you have any kind of investments in pharmaceutical opioids for prescription pain management, and that may influence you wanting to ban a specific substance. I'm not going to say that's his motive. I'm going to say I believe that there's a conflict of interest from my perspective. But this isn't a court. There's no judge. And that's kind of the scary part about the ledge is that you'll have folks going in and testifying, but there's not a level of evidentiary accountability. And we saw that with the fiscal note. Yeah. So to your question about SB3 and what do we think they'll do in the conversations that I've had. So as soon as we got the special session notification from Governor Abbott, I sat and I debated with myself, is it worth reaching out now ahead of the special session, or are they so burnt out and have other things that they're thinking about? And this was before the floods. But I just, on a random whim, like 2 days after it was announced, I hit them all up. All of them, because red and blue, that's how I maintain neutrality. And we didn't get much response at all from the prohibitionists, which is to be expected, but we did get some response from more moderate Republicans and of course from the Democrats when we've had some conversations with them. I do think that some new bills will be proposed. I think that they're being written right now. Or at least they're trying to figure out how they would write that if they were going to redline SB3. So redlining is when you get those copies of the bills and you can see where they have a red, it's literally red stricken language with a strike through. What they'll do between iterations of bills, they'll redline the bill, what works, and they'll add the language. And so what do I think the prohibitionists are likely doing? They're probably redlining their own bill for more strict enforceable law. So I'm saying that I know that everybody's really excited. I want everybody to stay excited and be in the momentum. Yay. Governor Abbott said, regulate it, but I don't want us to. And that's why I said regulate, because it's not, and it wasn't like it's more like make it enforceable. Yeah. Whatever you do, don't bring me a lawsuit.
That's exactly what I saw. That's exactly what I heard was this isn't going to be held up in court. He did say he wanted to see regulation, but I think that that's more of like a tactic to keep the voters in the
pacification. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be any legislator on the wrong side of this. I certainly wouldn't want to be Dan Patrick right now.
So
I want to be Ken Paxton.
Fathead Republican, right?
No.
so as far as like the new bill, how it actually goes, because this is my first time being in any of these sessions, and it's a lot already. But so like with these special sessions, how do they, I guess, how do they pan out? Does the prohibitionists, they keep the same bill, and then someone like yourself, you'll go in with, I guess, some legislation and just present it like that, or how does that process work?
So they have so the legislature will have their own team of drafters that they'll get to write these bills, because they do this so frequently, and they know how the Texas legislature likes to write their bills. It's kind of like it's almost like a mini regular session, and it can be extended, by the way, or we can have other calls. Like a few years ago, not during the legislature, they called a special session on beverages. I think that was last year. And they're not as public or well known. And so sometimes they'll sneak in legislation that way. For this special session, what can happen is, of course, they might not get through everything. They might have to set up another one. They'll come back at some point, or they won't recess at all. But what I think is more than likely for this, so like I was saying, I was hesitant to reach out to them before the floods. I did, we got a response, but now after the flooding, I don't know what I really couldn't predict with confidence. And by the way, anyone who's giving you the information like, oh, I had this meeting, or I know this or that's going to happen, that's all speculative prediction, unless you can provide the receipt and you're willing to like litigate that, and not only like legally, but also in the court of press, because nothing is real until it's real, you know what I mean? Until it's voted on and it's moved into a chamber. So I'm sure there's stakeholders who are having conversations, and there's, we have sent decision-making matrices to all of the legislators. So they have the information. But if you remember, Texas Hemp Business Council did the same thing. They had chemists testifying, they had lawyers sharing about enforceability of the bill. They had law enforcement sharing that this isn't going to work. And sometimes when it comes to ledge, it's not just about having the most sound legal and logical argument. It's also about winning the hearts and minds. And I'm not talking about the Texas public. I'm talking about the legislators themselves. And that's hard to do in a space like cannabis, because we're not lobbying them in the way that the pharmaceutical organizations, alcohol, and even private prison organizations have been able to over the last decades, or they have a pre-established relationship, or they have other deals that they've already worked out. And you guys saw that firsthand with the regular session, how they held some things hostage. For the flooding, I know that you might have said earlier, they might hold things hostage. I don't think anyone is dumb enough to do that, because I don't think it's
going to be the flooding either. I think they're going to tie hemp to the redistricting. I think that they're going to try to get Democrats who are completely against the redistricting to agree to it in return for concessions on regulation.
That would be insane for them to agree to anything regarding redistricting, because they'd be handing over the next
losing their seats.
Not just their seat. Yeah, it's career suicide. And it's overall big picture strategy bad for the party. So
I just don't think that they're not bold. I think they're bold enough to try. I
do too.
Don't
do
see
too.
anything that
like
is,
at this point, the things that they're doing without requiring a vote from the public, without putting it, like making it a ballot measure, that they're just taking it upon themselves to do right now, is just all balls, no brain. So I don't put it past them.
So this is when I want to remind people that the legislature is not divorce court, but it is, because it's the laws. Like, court is just a judge deciding how do these laws apply to the people. With the legislators, I wouldn't put it past them either. I think you're right, and we should be upset about it, but I don't want people to lose focus, because in any kind of litigation case where you're going to court and you're not going to settle it out, you're going to stack your chips as high as possible. So, and I would expect them to do that. So I think when people are like, well, do you think he'll come back with some reasonable legislation? No, absolutely no. I expect them to do the same thing they've always done. So yeah, you're probably right that they will do the gerrymandering thing. If a Democrat takes that deal and votes in a certain way based on that, that would be so dumb, because part of the other issue with the gerrymandering. So one thing that I learned when we were filming this season of Highly Informed during South by Southwest, we did an interview with Tristeza Ordex. And she's done a lot of work with Ground Game Texas. And one of the patterns that Ground Game picked up on really early on with the cannabis movement is that it is a movement that has mobilized voters. And Tristeza spoke to that directly. She talked about how, people in disenfranchised communities who had never participated in an election previously, and I'm not talking about young disenfranchised voters who are in their early 20s, I'm talking about 50, 60 older voters who hadn't participated before because they felt so othered or so helpless, participated when it came to cannabis legislation. And that's really interesting because cannabis, you wouldn't think, would be an elderly issue. But as they got to understand it, and as we're starting to seek, other opportunities for pain management beyond opioids, like I said, the vice market is going to be such a small part of the future, because what's really the bigger market is nutraceuticals, over-the-counter pain relief, and then the vice market. These older consumers and their family who also vote don't want to see people criminalized. So it's become a big voters issue. And I think that's largely why Abbott made a set of rules for, if you're going to regulate it, maybe look at this. Because nobody wants to look, 70% of Texans support it. So if you tie the cannabis thing to the gerrymandering thing, then I wouldn't put it past them, but it would really magnify that issue on another sociological level. And I would hope that the Democrats would see that and maybe say something about it, or they would see it and lean more into doing the right thing on cannabis is representing the actual independent will of the people. And this is the single issue that we can really see that is so evident on, because 70% of voters had something to say, or because these cities are decriminalizing on a local ballot level. And we're having these issues challenging, city not sovereignty, but
I live in Dallas.
And interrupt at any point, because I'll just riff. It's obviously things have been on my mind.
I was agreeing with you. Like, I live in one of those counties. So like Dallas County passed a ballot measure. I think it was like 68% approval for decriminalization of small amounts of THC within the county line. Yeah. And the Attorney General is really suing us to kill that. Like, we voted for that.
Right. And if you have a majority of the people doing it, it's a do no harm, then there's really no, what now we have to ask, why aren't the representatives representing the people in a democracy? But we got other issues. So as far as, going way back to Tovar's question, I think SB3 will probably resurface, but it won't be written as a ban bill. But yes, it's still probably going to be a ban bill. It's just a bad written ban bill. And I do know some offices are considering submitting new bills, but I haven't seen no bills have crossed my path. On the back end, only bits and pieces that I've helped folks work on, or at least answered some questions about debunking medical myths, or we have done a lot of talking about taxes. And we want to make sure, like, one thing I'm worried about is maybe they come back with SB3 and it looks like good regulation, but then when you look at the tax rate, they know that's the way to effectively kill the industry, because they're going to mark it up like 40% or something. And then, I told them, and not to be facetious or, punny, but it's like a plant. There's a million ways to kill the industry. You can overwater it, you can underwater it, you can overtax it, you can overregulate it, or you can let it be completely unhinged. And that also doesn't work. Because we want safe practices, safe and good manufacturing practices, and testable products. So it's more complicated than what they're giving it space for. And I think some of us are hoping maybe there just won't be enough space to talk about, and we'll have to delay this until the next legislature. No ban, maybe no rules for now,
So-
except for a simple one pager, age gating, because that's really all Texas needs.
Yep.
But I say that would be logical to do that, but will they be logical? I doubt it. I don't know.
So I just want to say there are some House resolutions that certain representatives have already filed on the books. And I just, real quick before Chastity hops in, this is costing us $1.5 million, guys, for 30 days for these people to go here and file House resolutions like proposing in memory of Kenneth Allen Griffin of Katy, Texas, commemorating the 15th anniversary of No Label Brewing Co. in Katy, Texas. These are Schofield and Bell Cecil bills. How about Leo Wilson filing commemorating the relaunch of Eminence Baptist Church in Wallaceville as the Cross Baptist Church? We are filing a House resolution spending taxpayer dollars to change the name of a Baptist church in Wallaceville. You guys, they don't give a damn about us. Make better choices when you show up to the ballot box and make sure that these clowns don't go back and waste your money again. These special sessions are not required. He orders these on his own. He's done it 4 times since he's been in office and wasted our money every single time. Stop letting it happen. Sorry, Chastity, go ahead.
So I one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I have my own, so the whole point of this podcast, because do you know anything about the podcast, Shaun? Have you watched it?
I know you guys. I know.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so the whole point of this podcast was, what we realized in the last session was that people believe that their voice doesn't matter, right? People have been told repeatedly that your vote doesn't matter, your voice doesn't matter. And what we realized is
it's rigged.
31 million people in the state of Texas, only 17 million of those are registered to vote, and less than half of those actually do vote when it comes to that time to vote. And, you know, I know I did my part with like rounding the people that I know, like getting them all, you know, writing letters, calling their reps, like doing everything that they possibly could. And I had a lot of, you know, feedback from that, of people like, this is my very first time of ever doing this. And so the reason we came up with this podcast is because I truly believe that your voice matters. I truly believe that the reason that I know that there is a playbook behind Abbott's veto, right? I know that there is a playbook there, but I also truly believe that when those letters were delivered, so prior to the letters being delivered to his office, there was no visual aspect to us calling every single representative every single day. There was no proof to anybody else that we were sending these emails. But when those letters were delivered in those boxes, it was a visual thing that was not deniable anymore, that people are actually doing something. And that's when we started getting a whole lot of movement, right? As far as press.
That was a huge turning point.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the like gold star moments everyone in cannabis can learn from as far as PR and grassroots movements is, if they're calling silly press conferences, throwing around edibles, you better make sure you have footage when your stack of letters is delivered and make it substantial. And I thought that was really meaningful and impactful, because then he had all those boxes in his office. You can't ignore it. Yeah.
And so we started getting a whole lot of movement.
Not being able to ignore it.
Yeah. So that's when we started getting a whole lot of press and everything. And I think that actually made it made a move to the people that, like, look, I wrote one of those letters. I signed that petition. One of those is mine, right? And people started, because this started being in the news, this started getting so much more momentum when it was visual, that people got excited. And when he vetoed it, I truly believe that your voice mattered, that he vetoed this because he knows that Dan Patrick, I mean, we're all on social media. I don't know what y'all's comment section looks like, but my comment section is very much half red, half blue, and independents as well. And Republicans do not want Dan Patrick. They will never vote for him again. Democrats obviously will never vote for Dan Patrick again. Like, he has committed political suicide with this one thing, because he doubled down and doubled down and doubled down and doubled down and isolated every single constituent that he had that was backing him. And people they're done with Dan. And I truly believe that Abbott saw that. I believe that every rep saw that. I mean, we've got reps that are they're backpedaling right now. They're like, we were strong-armed in there. They were holding our bills hostage. That's why I had to vote that way.
I would have loved them to say that up front when they were holding education funding hostage. We knew about it. Right. But they couldn't say it because they're in regular session. So those kinds of things are not going to be as effective during special session because it's special. But the gerrymandering thing is kind of huge.
Yeah.
So it's like, at first I was really excited because I was like, oh my God, they have nothing to leverage during the special session. We'll actually have to talk about this. Yeah. But they're adding things in there to leverage. So that's such a fair point. But you're absolutely right. People's voices do make a difference. And now those people who reached out to their legislators, I've heard that legislators are reaching back now that they can switch course and correct themselves. And they're wanting to come into stores and they want to visit and they want to really understand before they come back July 21st. So I highly encourage, if one of your representatives has reached out to you, make sure your shit's in order. And then, host them, answer the questions. Tell them the truth. Don't tell them tell them your personal experience, whether it's with the plant or as a business operator, and be really direct and candid. Don't try to, blow up your numbers. If your sales are hurting because there's a law that's hurting them, share that. If there's something that you want so you can feel safeguarded, like the age gating law, we all want that. So we can all feel pretty confident no one's selling to kids, at least none of the good operators. Tell them that, because they need they're not cannabis experts. So they go into these debates knowing only what they know and with the talking points that they've been given. Now is the time, if you wanted to make a 1-page bullet point thing and send it to your rep on specific points, they need that material. They're looking for debate material. And I will give Darby credit. He told us he's one of the few conservatives who he spoke out and he said they were holding everything. They hold the whole house, all of the House bills hostage. That's bad.
Yeah. So what do you know that we have a committee that what is that committee called, Tovar?
The Oversight Committee?
No, the one that kind of holds everybody accountable.
The chair.
So there's a specific committee that's supposed to prevent this from happening or do investigations and stuff on it. And so my whole point with this was like, I know James Tallarico came out before session even started and said, Jeff Yass, Tim, whatever his name is, John now, all these billionaires have bought your governor, bought your lieutenant governor, bought your senators, and now they're trying to buy your House reps. When SB2 was it SB2?
That was the education
bill. When it was going through, he stood up and he said, I know you guys are all, afraid. Abbott has pulled every House representative into his office, threatened your next running with making your primaries a bloodbath, all of the things. And then we have all these reps that are coming out afterwards and they're saying, oh, we were strong-armed, we were this, we were that. Where were you when you could have been speaking up then, and I would have still had your back in this specific situation.
And
even if you
admit that
for it.
Right. See, that's what I was going to say. We have to stop going back and checking the box for these idiots who are willing to come out and say, oh, I got taken advantage of. I was too weak. They're so strong.
Yeah, because they can all use that at this point. And so the whole point of this podcast, sorry, Shaun, I went off on
it's good.
The whole point of this podcast.
I gotta be like, okay, you want to switch tracks? Come and talk to me. But I understand if the people don't, I get losing a level of respect for it because you voted for these people to fight for you. I will give James Tallarico a lot of credit. I do believe he earnestly fights for his constituents. I'm not gonna criticize any one of the legislators because I do believe, I think Charles Perry is genuinely trying to represent his folks out of Lubbock. And he's getting more of a conservative voice from them. But there's a level where you have to consider the needs of all of your people, not just.
And that's what a representative is. If you've got 75% of your constituents in your specific area saying, hey, this is what we want, or this is what we don't want, regardless of what your personal, what you think, you have to represent that 75%, right? That's what a representative does, or that's what they're supposed to do, but that's not what actually happens. And so
normally I would agree with you, but when I saw the videos of the citizens of Kerrville denying Obama's funding because they didn't want woke money,
I thought it was Biden.
It was both
Biden.
Obama and Biden.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same, like, you know that this is in your best interest, but you're not going to take it because of who it's coming from. And those are the people who are being represented by people like Chip Roy and these crazy extremists who just spout off this BS on the House floor like it's totally normal. They're hearing it from their constituents too. So there are this group of people who want this stuff. And how do we combat that noise?
And what's crazy is that they still took that money after saying that. I forgot what the reason.
They just didn't do anything good with it. They literally took it and took it home. They said, no, we're not going to give your tax dollars back to you.
They gave someone like $1 million for retiring or something, I think.
Oh my God, dude. They like upgraded the walkie-talkie system for the police department, like stuff like that, instead of putting it towards the alert system because it's woke.
So, and there was a couple of things that I heard about. There was also the part of it was that they wanted to change where the floodplains were.
Oh yeah, years ago.
Yeah, it was to build shoreline property on the shores because this was an accounting thing or a legal zoning issue, which is also like, why are we asking ourselves to zone things in flood zones? In flood zones, bad idea. Yeah. So I hear you. Yes. And I think honestly, this is a symptom of a little bit of the political disease we have in our country right now. Is the far left doesn't want shit to do with the far right, and the far right doesn't want anything to do with the far left, and that's fair. Unfortunately, it is creating spaces where it's hard to legislate in the middle. Even when you try to give them resources, like Biden or Trump, I got criticism for both, and I got criticism for both. I don't have much of anything else. But if we like, right, but both of them have the capacity and have done things that are acts of, kindness to the nation, trying to give money or allocate resources to certain causes or issues. Melania, she's not my favorite political philosopher, but the work that she did for the revenge porn on the internet, I think it's tremendous. So
that was noble.
Right. So there's going to be things where they do good work, unfortunately, because they have polarized and they've made quite like a bit show of this. And it's a way that I think partially one thing that we're going to see too. And I think part of what they might have realized, especially with like how much traction our cannabis industry in Texas was able to build, is because of the social media followings that groups like the Texas Cannabis Collective have, groups like the Texas Hemp Business Council can quickly build. And I think they saw how much actual social power the cannabis industry had, and more. And let's not just say it's the cannabis industry. Let's look at the New York mayor election and Mundell and his social power. I think they see something. And so now there's an old way of politicking that is crumbling and falling apart, but they're still going to want to bring in lobbying dollars and influence because it benefits them. But they also need to figure out how to reach their audiences and the general public, and doing it through broadcast news and the traditional channels. That isn't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
And
we have to stop voting based off of party, guys. Start voting based off of the issues. I have
Cassidy's mantra.
Oh my God, it drives me
here.
Nuts.
Big.
It drives me nuts because I was raised in a very strict Republican household. Everybody was Republican. I didn't know the difference. I just knew liberals were bad, right? Until I started paying attention and I was like, oh, I don't think I agree with that. I agree with this, but I also don't agree with this. I agree with this. And so I realized that I used to call myself a fence rider. Like I'm kind of on one side or the other, but really it's issues, right? And so I say that I'm an independent. I say this every episode. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm an independent. But I have like people that are in my comments and they're like, I am a Republican, but I hate the Republicans right now, but I will never vote Democrat. And so I'm like, stop voting based off a party and start voting based off of issues. And they would like, I actually had this exact comment. He says, that would be Beto then. But I disagree with one thing about Beto. And he's a Democrat, so I'll never vote for him. And I'm like, listen, if you are going to vote for somebody, you're voting for them to represent you. And if you agree with the majority of their platform, then you would probably assume that any issue that were to arise, that they would vote based off of what you would vote for, because it would be like putting yourself in that position, right? Because you're agreeing with them most often. Why would you completely disregard that because you have a political party that you're just so dead set on? That makes zero sense to me whatsoever. And I want people to understand that, like, you don't have to agree with there's tons of Democrats that I don't agree with. There's tons of Republicans that I don't agree with. But I do agree with right and wrong on certain issues. And I think that that's valid. I think that you can vote on that and it be valid.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, or even how they manage the issue. Like maybe you don't agree with, there's no perfect candidate. You're not going to agree with any. Right. And if you think you found a perfect candidate, you have found a candidate who's got some skeletons in their closet, I guarantee. Because if they're perfect, it's because they're canned and they've been canned for it. It's strategic. You're not going to find a perfect candidate, but I think when you look at how they handle themselves when debating the issue, like if I was going to look at a candidate with servant leadership or even tactical strength, not trying to underestimate what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick did, because he was successful in his strategy. But think about all the things, all the wrenches he had. He had to leverage public education, the entire House, all of their bills. That's a lot to leverage. So if I'm an organizational leader and I need to like get people to do what I want them to do, because I'm the lieutenant governor and I know that half of these people don't want to do what I want to do, I'm going to try to figure out how to make this palatable. When you watch these leaders do this in a way that is so obtuse, it's so hard to continue to justify the leadership on it, because you can disagree with them. I could be okay with disagreeing if I saw that there was some thoughtful leadership behind the decision making, but all I'm seeing is the press conferences to me looked like temper tantrums. Like, I don't know how else to look at it. It looked like reality TV.
They're embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was
I think that's probably the easiest way to describe the way it feels to be an American right now is just embarrassed. Like, I think that's probably the most common universal feeling at the moment. Because for sure, like the three of us come from different political backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. Shaun, I'm not familiar with your background, but I'm sure it's nothing like mine. Is everybody embarrassed currently? Because I'm horrified.
Oh yeah,
everybody I know
for sure.
is embarrassed. So Shaun, for just a regular person, how would you recommend getting involved and like making your voice heard, trying to stop some of this?
So I think the first thing is going to be if you've never done it at all, just send an email. Like send an email to your representative, reach out to them, let them know who you are, share your thoughts on the issue. It doesn't even have to be perfectly crafted. You just get into the practice of contacting them, because it's always that first email that is the scariest. And then you send it and you're like, oh, I feel so much better. And that really wasn't that hard. But the other thing is that you send the one email and then you wait and see what happens. I want us to challenge that approach. I want you to send the email and then I want you to follow up. And then I want you to call them. And I just want you to be genuine. I just want you to be earnest. I don't want you to be combative. I want you to be nice. Yeah, because we got to get them to have a conversation. And when we're yelling at them, so when you're yelling at someone, all of the facts and figures you're giving them are completely irrelevant because they can't hear beyond the tone.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for anyone to placate, especially if they're upset with their representative. I think you should let them know. I noticed that you voted this way on this version of it, and find out between the two versions of SB 3 and the Oliverson Amendment. Find out if they voted for the first version, if they voted for the Ken King version, if they voted for the Moody Amendment, which was a decrim one for kids, never mind adults. But if you can't agree on decrim for kids, you got to nut loose.
Yeah.
Or you got lobbying dollars with private prison, one or the other, or both. And then check and see how they, and then check and see that last one, the Oliverson Amendment. That's the big kicker, because then people will say, oh, I didn't vote for that version. I voted for this. But you need to go look at how they ran that race. Go and see all the ways that they did, and then find out why. What was it? What was the one issue? And I'm so sorry about the dog. Just had to give her a quick holler. But just find out what was the linchpin, like what was the deal breaker for them, because for a lot of them there was a small deal breaker that probably we could have figured out with a little bit of education, or there was something that they didn't understand, so they leaned into safety, and safety is a ban right now for them, at least. Not all of them are millennial legislators like Tallarico, or young legislators. So they're, this is very new for Texas, even though it's not new at all. But I do want to encourage folks, like, just break the ice, send that email. But after that, challenge yourself. So you're going to send your email, and then I want each of you to do like a research project. Find your own passionate, whatever are really passionate about in cannabis, your one angle, your one lens. Because sometimes if you send 1 million, it just doesn't land. But if you are a mom and you need this for your kid, you need to send me or send them. These are the 5 benefits. And here's this benefit, and here's that medical study. Here's the link to it. I'm going to give that to you. And then here's this benefit, and here's why it applies to my life, and another study. Here's that for you. Because they need those articles, they need studies and data to debate on the floor. Part of what I noticed about the Democrats when the Senate ran SB 3 the first time is that they tried, like Sarah Eckhart tried, but some of the arguments fell so flat because there was nothing behind them, Like she was saying, like when Ken King passed SB 3, he was giggling, and I was like, this is the spirit of Mary infiltrating him, and he has no idea. But he started and he was wearing that 70s, that jacket, that suit looked like it was straight out of that brown suit, looked like it was out of the 70s. And that's not a diss. I thought it was perfect. I was like, did we convert him or something?
Napoleon.
Yeah, but he was laughing. He was like, legalizing cannabis. And he was laughing because he couldn't believe it himself, but he tried. He was trying to say the words cannabinoid. He was trying to share the information we shared with him. That's what I love. Look, I don't know about his whole record. I'd have to look into it, but Ken King he's got a place in my heart, because I could tell that he tried.
He was trying,
For sure.
And then it was way outside of his comfort zone, because I don't think he expected to be the Republican who was going to be the face of legalizing cannabis, but he understood the mission. Work with those legislators, give them words of encouragement, tell them, be honest with them, and try to make it a conversation, but get very specific, friends, because the general information we give in the special session, all the reefer madness arguments, I imagine will continue, but also we're going to have to expect that we're going to have to elevate these conversations and stop arguing with the prohibitionists on reefer madness silliness. Let them say their silly talking points and what they're going to say. We need to stop addressing their arguments entirely, and we just need to present the good arguments for ourselves, because arguing with that, I feel like we waste so much of the initial regular session just dealing with propaganda. When you're addressing propaganda, it gives it life. I don't think I'm going to give them a myth fact sheet, and I don't think I'm going to address propaganda anymore.
I wish that way. I mean, I hope that works out. I hope that
I can do it because I have closed door conversations
Yeah.
talking about tax brackets and a little bit more nuance. And I just want to encourage people. One thing I noticed the representatives that responded to in that late night testimony was something that they had never heard before. And so when we are always doing the reefer madness arguments, I would give it like, you get only 2 minutes. I would give it 10 to 15 seconds on that. You get 1 sentence on the propaganda dismantling and then prove your case. Yeah. Because it's like in divorce court. If you sit there and you argue about how bad your ex is, that's great, but you're not convincing me how great you are. You know, all you're showing me is that you badmouth your ex. And not a lot of judges are going to go for that. That's kind of, don't forget most of the legislators are old judges or lawyers. So they're going to think of things in this way too. Address the opposition, give them one line if you want to, but I'm going to challenge everybody to focus their 2 minutes, spend as much time as possible on all of your good and your facts and your science, bring them something they've never heard before. And let's drill that into their head, because there were 200 of us at that Senate hearing and there was only 20 of them. So after 20 of them get through their prohibitionist nonsense, we can have 20 of us with the same prohibitionist addressing the prohibitionists, but then I want to hear 180 other stories, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in special session, we might have an opportunity to testify again against these bills.
Yeah, so it'll be just like a regular session. They'll announce it. So I don't have dates for you right now, because we'll get it just like we did at the regular session, where they were like, we've scheduled this on the docket. And that, guys, it's not always vengeful. Sometimes it's really just how the schedule and the docket goes. It's same in court. Sometimes the schedules when the judges are available is when the judges are available. They have other committee meetings. We have the floods now. I think cannabis is not going to be the first issue. We've got the floods. We've got gerrymandering. I'm sure they'll do gerrymandering just like they did education first. They'll do the gerrymandering before cannabis and can hold some things hostage, or can make some promises, like the teachers' raises didn't get approved until concessions were made about the THC bills. So I would expect maybe they'll attempt to do the gerrymander, but know that attempt may fail in the end if the Democrats push hard enough, but they're going to try to squeeze as much out of it as they can, because that's just the nature of the beast. But they will announce, you'll get to testify, they'll do the public hearings again, and we'll go right back through the same process of drafting a bill. They won't reinvent the wheel in that way. Just expect it to be much shorter notice and faster moving once it does get going.
Okay. Shorter notice than 3 days.
I think they have 40. I think they must announce for at least 48 hours. I'm not 100% sure. There's certain rules about, because like a court hearing, you have to announce it. You have to give the constituents notice so they can show up.
Due process, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. It's like the same thing. You have to give the people a chance, because we don't have ballot initiatives and all that. Our rules are very concrete. This is the only time that people really get to make rules, every 2 years when the ledge meets.
So where can people follow your work or get involved with what you're doing?
So right now, the best place to find me, Parlay and the Puebla Group, the website launches are forthcoming, but I'll be frank, I have enough word of mouth. I haven't needed to launch them. I feel like an ass saying that. But I'm really looking forward. After Ledge, I'll be doing, of course, more mediation work and getting back to my first passion. Every 2 years, we do Ledge. So for now, the best place to find me is, you can find me at Highly Informed, and that's informed with an E, like endocannabinoid. So highlyinformed.com, that'll take you to the YouTube for now. Eventually we'll have a full platform with videos, like courses, everything that you could want, all of the seasons. But right now, highlyinformed.com on YouTube. And then also you can find the show at Beard Bros Media or High at 9 News. I'm also on High at 9 News every Wednesday, except for tomorrow. I have some legal training that I'll be attending, but every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. That is 11 a.m. Central. So during our lunch hour in Texas, and I am one of our lead Texas correspondents. So most of my articles are coming from the Lone Star State, but that's a great resource for not just Texas news, but national headlines in cannabis as well as international. And then otherwise, y'all, you can find me at the Texas Cannabis Collective. I post and will repost, or at Shaun Salvaje if you're on IG. I don't have a newsletter. I don't do a lot of that other stuff because I do this.
Yes.
We'll get that eventually, but I'm like one woman. So we'll get there when we need it. But for now, the wheel hasn't fallen off the bus, and we seem to be doing fine. I'd rather spend more time writing legislation for y'all than anything than being on the socials. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, we appreciate everything.
Totally fair.
Shaun, I got one more thing for you, Shaun. So when we went to testify, this is a really weird story how this all happened and how we all came together here. So we all went to testify in August. I forgot what day it was, March 7th or something like that. April 7th, something like that. I forgot what day it was, but the night before I had went to Austin and I got a hotel. I was gonna chill out, work on my little speech or whatever, and do my thing and get out of there. Well, that night before we had went, I had a really bad night. Like I'm a veteran with PTSD, and it was definitely one of those nights, and by myself in that hotel room. But made it through the night, and I got up super early and I went to go testify like everybody else. I was there for over, I don't know, I got there like at 7 or 6 in the morning, and I was actually the last one. I didn't even get to testify because something happened when I went to go register that my name didn't pick up in the system, so I didn't get to testify. So that whole 2 days for me was like, it was a waste of it was just a waste of time. And I was so pissed off. I forgot what I said, but I cussed at them, and then I kind of stormed out. But Shaun came after me, and she was like, "Hey, I don't know your name, but here's my email. Send me your speech, and we'll make sure that your voice gets heard." And that was really all I needed to like just give me like a little bit of a push, because I was so pissed off that I fucking waited almost 24 hours just to hear me say 2 minutes, and I didn't get that. But you know, when I left, you calmed me down almost immediately whenever you stopped me. And I just want to say thank you for that, because that was really meaningful, and I feel like that was like a very small push, and not only like meeting Chastity and Jen and Claire, it's definitely been a great experience, and I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we had just had our other brother, Riley. Sorry, she's like, damn right. But we had our other brother who had been was about to be escorted off the grounds because, and he was an infantry Marine, I believe, and he was justifiably angry when he spoke, but he wasn't so outrageous that I wouldn't have heard him out. I think you'll find the legislators are quick to get rid of any rebel rousing. And it's because they want to maintain decorum. I think they know how quickly this issue can spin out, but also because they sort of don't want to hear it from anybody. It feels so uncomfortable to say something. Nobody wants to have that bad moment with a veteran, but also it's so hard to do it tactfully. And I just really appreciate that you realized, like, in the moment you brought yourself, you composed yourself, and so did he. You guys composed yourselves, and that is the best strategy, because look at how much work you've gotten done. Like, instead of losing your shit and getting escorted off, and maybe even, like, who knows what the Capitol Police will do if, like, you get escorted and they follow you on the grounds and they're like, you were smoking a joint. You know, I don't know. They're not supposed to do shit like that, but you never know when they want to make an example of someone or a headline. Because then the next day that would have been cannabis advocate, you know, goes off on legislators and commits violent act. Or I don't know, but you wouldn't, I hope you wouldn't do that. It's the collect yourselves, but then I think because you can choose, like, and this is the key thing for if you show up and things don't go your way, This is the same for like the bill passed and we all felt like dying on the inside, but then we kept going with grace and the veto came, and that veto was not guaranteed. If you think he was planning on vetoing that bill the whole time, you know,
No.
will make it happen. So I just think you can choose, like, I'm gonna tap into my anger and the victimness of that, which is fair. It's so valid because I had so much compassion for you. I was like, that is so fucked. They could just add him to the list. We're all here. It's 3 a.m. Don't be like that. I've seen you do it before. I've seen you guys do it before where you just manually, but okay. But your voice, instead you chose to like collect yourself, connect with others. And now look at what you're doing. You're doing a thing where you're encouraging other people to use their voice. That's the best trajectory for a bad outcome. So I want to applaud you. You made a conscious choice to continue mission, you know, my fellow veteran, and to do it very gracefully, tactfully, and professionally. And I think that speaks volumes, whereas others might have just given into the emotion of the moment and then never come back. And so applause to you, my friend. And no problem.
That.
No skin off my back to just email them and be like, yo, you missed someone's, I know we can't enter it into the record, but I think it's really important to hear from this veteran. And I'm happy to like send them collections of stories at a time. I send them all kinds of emails. I'm going to start just sending them a newsletter they didn't even ask for. Like, I don't know, we'll see. But thank you so much. And Chastity, I'm so sorry. I know you're
okay.
No,
so
we're over time.
We've been watching. No, it's okay. We have a live chat going, and we haven't had any questions. Everybody's just like super, thank you so much. We love you so much. But we just got a question that I wanted to make sure that it got answered. So Kingstone Farm says, what do you guys think about limiting cannabinoids, or as Governor Abbott said on his proclamation, limiting THC levels? I feel like the legislatures used all of the information that people testified with and used it against us at the end.
Yeah, I would expect that they will do that. Like anything that you share with them is like, it's going to be used against you. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't share. Like some people were like, well, maybe we shouldn't tell them about the post office, and the cat's out of the bag. Also, they're already aware, like they are looking at other states. Like in some of the conversations I've had, they're looking at states like Alabama. Some of them are looking at states like North Carolina. I think, you know, that's better, but even the tax rate in North Carolina, no. So they're looking at other states, and you have to be aware that like, we already pulled the fast one, and it wasn't that fast. It was about 5 to 7 years. That has already been done, and they're going to look to lock things up. So here's what I say to folks, because I love Cynthia Cabrera. I love Lucas. I've worked with folks from Teacup, not Texas Original. But I've worked with Good Blend. We have partners out there. And I'll say this much. I want y'all to argue your best case without disparaging anyone else. And I want you to understand that they probably are going to turn that information on you, but I wouldn't hold it too close to your chest anyway, because I know that we think that the time, and this could be a little controversial, like Lucas and Cynthia have to fight all the way on the other side of no regulation except for age gating, which I agree with them. Now, with the legislators have to make rules. And they make rules the way they make rules. And they've already talked about what rules they want to make. And the more we kind of pretend that, no, we don't want to talk about those rules you want to make, the more likely we're going to get some bad rules. So that's why my job in the middle, or the mediator, is to be like, bring me all your stuff and what can we figure out? So as far as THC limits, we need to have a really good, healthy conversation in Texas, because I really think whatever we decide here in Texas is going to set the pace for what happens on the national level. They put that year stop on the hemp ban for a reason. They want it. I think the Trump administration would like to see what the states decide overall. And that's also why states are looking to each other. And Texas is not, we have been telling them, don't look at California. Like, it's not the gold star. It is not the gold star example for legalization. Don't look at Colorado. They did it 20 years ago. It's a totally different market, completely different dynamics. And we're suggesting, and I think this would be good language for all of us to use, is that Texas can lead the way.
Yes.
We can lead the way
Sure.
for the nation when
Yes.
it comes to deschedule, setting up a nutraceutical as well as adult use market with regulation. And also, because we have such a slim medical program, I really think it would be good for us to challenge them. Bills that may be considered SB3, HB 46 could be not the specific bill, but adding to it could be on the table, expanding more medical. And then now we've seen what was introduced, HB 42, the one pager about if a person has been told by a retailer that their product is hemp and then it's found to be marijuana, which is the legal definition, they're not criminally liable. So we have some stuff. I just think we need to elevate the conversation preemptively. Like, let's not even, that's why I don't want to address prohibitionist arguments. They want to start back at letter A, ground zero. I want to start at G, because that's where the conversation should have begun.
Yeah, we're moving forward. We're moving forward. Y'all could stay back there.
Yep. So as far as THC limits, it's a great question. I know that we all want to argue no THC limits, and we're going to argue those arguments as best as possible. And I know Lucas and Cynthia, like, I don't know. I can't speak for them, you guys. I'm only just sharing my impressions. I know they're going to fight like hell for as little regulation as possible, because that is, for according to their philosophy, the best thing that they can do, not just for their business outcomes, but also for the hemp industry, because they don't believe in a ton of overregulation. And I agree with that. However, we have to understand the legislator is going to legislate. So we need to my concern is if we don't have a healthy and productive conversation, they'll write rules without us anyway. And we know that.
Period.
So I don't think this is the time to hope that they don't do anything. I think this is the time to give them as much good information as possible, and then hope that they don't do anything, but be prepared for something and to come back to the negotiating table.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're a private citizen, share your
question.
No, you're good. So essentially, if you are a voter, share your personal stories with your elected officials, tell everybody, bring your friends, go and talk to your legislature, go write letters, email, phone calls. And if you are a hemp industry business owner or a hemp industry insider, then you want to start providing data and regulation suggestions. Don't talk about prohibition. Shaun says that it's just negative. All you're going to do is put up blocks. So start talking about the things that you have in common. We want regulation. We want.
If you don't want like THC limits, you need to explain it. Like, explain why. Explain that a flower at 15% can be as meaningful or impactful as one that may be rated at 30 or 40%. And sometimes that THC is only one measure of the plant. I think highlighting that it's only one measure might be a really good way to try to steer away from limits. But if you want to, steering away from limits is really, really hard, guys. We're hoping to argue for full spectrum THC, but even if we get that, there's still going to be limits.
So I have a master's degree in pharmaceutical science and specialize in cannabis specifically. And I think that the one thing that the one way, did Tovar do this?
Yes, Chastity likes to make us all feel real dumb sometimes. So go ahead and spill some tea.
I'm not intentionally trying to make you feel dumb.
You can't help it. You're just brilliant. Go ahead.
But my thought process on this limit thing, right, is we can all sit here and pass around the same exact joint, and all of us will have a different effect, right? For me, I'm kind of a lightweight, right? So regardless of how much I consume, I don't need a whole lot of THC to be medicated. Whereas Jen, well, all of you guys probably have a higher tolerance than I do. And so, but even not even the fact of tolerance, but your endocannabinoid system is not the same as mine. It's like a fingerprint, right? And so if Tovar has back pain, right, exactly, it's gonna change based off of hormones. It's gonna change based off of
nutrition, exercise,
everything. Yes, everything.
Physiology,
dopamine. Yes, everything will change, and it will change hourly and it can change by the day and it will change by the person. And so to me, the thing that when I'm talking to these legislatures or to anybody about cannabis, my biggest thing is education. It's so important that we have education in the cannabis space. Basic knowledge as well as advanced knowledge in the cannabis space. And these legislatures, the representatives themselves, we are expecting them to be experts in every bill and every topic, and they're not, and it's impossible for them to have that. So your job as a constituent is to come to them as whatever expert, on that specific topic, so that you can answer these things. When we're talking about having limits on levels, 2 milligrams may be fine for me, but you may need 50 or 100 milligrams, right? And there's no way to standardize this across the board for every single person, right? And we have to make them understand that.
We recommended some language that I have suggested, and I'm hoping. The other thing is that once we start introducing language into the culture and the cannabis community starts using it more comfortably, then it becomes the nomenclature that almost becomes standard. So one thing we've been sharing is they already said 10 milligrams in King's bill.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, leave it. 10 meg edible, got it. Let's use 10 megs as our standard dose. Let's consider like if you have to define it, then we can define 5 megs as your microdose, 10 as your standard dose. And then I kept telling him, think of it like Excedrin. Okay, 25 is your extra strength. Now, to my friends who have a high tolerance, we did talk about tolerance taxes with Nathan Johnson's office, and that we need to make sure, however we're doing this, we're not creating de facto tolerance taxes for people, like every freaking 1 milli charging for it. That's silly. But the industry has to recognize we can't have 500 milligram edible and that's your single serving size. Like we have to standardize like any other industry. Just like food has serving sizes and then packaging, and they have to have nutritional information, the calories, the ingredients. We have to start treating ourselves like those industries. And while I understand, like, of course, do I want to be limited? Not at all. Never. I want to make my own decisions. I think I'm grown enough to do that. But at the same time, I recognize as far as consumer packaged goods, standardization is kind of essential. So we're talking, what I suggested was to think of it as 5 milligram micro, 10 meg standard, 25 meg extra strength. And over the counter language is what I keep trying to use, because I don't want to confuse them with pharmaceutical language. I really want to, this might be where other people, I kind of am going against the industry a little bit, or I'm trying to push the industry to evolve. Texas doesn't have a really established medical program, and I've been telling the legislators we need to push medical to move towards pharmaceutical. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to the cannabis movement, but I think what was counterintuitive was calling it medicine, using medical as a way to get adult use markets open. And now we have adult use medical monopolies that aren't actually medical operators, because they don't do anything else like the healthcare system. So what I'm encouraging them is, if you really want to support the medical teacup operators, especially since none of them are really operational, the best thing you can do is establish Texas, much like the Ibogaine program, where they're putting funding into it and they're looking at it as this future healthcare technology. They should be looking at cannabis, the medical program, in that way too. And then the adult use nutraceutical, whether it's nutraceutical or vice market, that's a whole separate, that's not at all in the healthcare industry. And we need to reframe how we're looking at medical cannabis. It's not your audience, the medical cannabis operators audience, core audience should be patients and physicians, not the adult use market. Like that is, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I know that it's so exciting to think that you're going to have a medical monopoly and you pay $10 million and you get a cut of like a multi-billion-dollar pie. And that's cute, but that's like very 20 years ago, California. No, we're not doing it anymore. And most of those state programs on the medical side have failed. So I think
Yeah.
Texas, we hardly have anything. Let's just push our operators to do it. We'll be the next level. And I think that would set the tone for why we need to deschedule federally and then push pharmaceutical cannabis. That's its own. Yeah. Those cannabinoids rescheduled because those are Frankenstein cannabinoids. They're doing things to them. That should be scheduled. They should be studied. But the natural plant, don't be silly.
Yeah, I agree.
Mallory O'Rourke on YouTube says liquor can be 190 proof, wine can be 20, malt can be 12 or even 15, limits with different rules for different businesses. So this is the only industry that they want to put it has to be one specific number, one rule. It's just impossible regulations because it's this product.
Yeah. And I think it's mostly fear driven. They don't understand self-titration. They think people are getting stoned and are completely reckless. And that's why it's so important to normalize nope, the mom down the street, your lawyer probably was getting high before he litigated.
Right? Which is why we are so thankful for your work.
Thank you.
All right, Shaun, thank you so much for coming with us. Anybody else have anything to say before we close it out?
No, just thanks.
Thank you for your service, Shaun.
Of course, my pleasure. I just have a fetish for serving the American public. So
we hope that we get to have you back.
During after. Maybe
for sure.
After. Definitely.
Yeah, that would be really
awesome. Cool. All right, so next week we're gonna have William Marks on. He's running for Congress in District 45, I believe. We'll have some stuff
25.
up. 25. So we'll have his information up on our website. Other than that, this is the Grassroots Resistance Collective. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you.